So, of course, always we should start with motivation. Say, why am I attending this class today? It's an interesting thought. Obviously, it's interesting. I might get more clear in my dreams, things like that. But on the other side of the fence is it's a little bit sort of all about you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'd say most of us do meditate for personal reasons. But if you want to sort of increase or change a little bit the chemistry in your body, then think of someone you love and say, I'm attending for them. Maybe it's only one person, but the thing is something changes in you, which we could say is the birth of bodhicitta, in the sense that it is an idea that I'm doing this for more than myself. May I become more enlightened. May I be able to benefit others well. So first off, just starting always with motivation. And so we're doing lucid dreaming. Last week, I did the introduction into that. So I just want to review it lightly. That one is, I'm not a psychologist, nor like something special in regards to dreams. I'm relating my experience at one primarily as a Buddhist practitioner from the experiences that I had with my various teachers, primarily Lama Yeshe and then Lingren Rinpoche, and of course then various other teachers that might have made small comments. So that's so I'm not claiming to be professional. And also, each one of you are a little different. You have different cultures possibly. So therefore, there could be slightly different, experiences that you're going to have within your own consciousness and then the way it manifests in your dreams. So just to be clear that I'm just sharing things which might be interesting and insightful and mainly help you with your practice. As I said in the first day, being as a Buddhist practitioner, dreams are merely signposts. And so if you're driving from New Mexico to some other city, you don't stop and dig up the signposts and put them in your car. You just notice, okay, I'm on the right path, or I've taken a detour. I want to emphasize that that's the most important thing, because it's your attitude, from the Buddhist point of view, that created those dreams. Attitude, past karma, current situations. It's not too simplistic, but basically you could say it's your attitude that creates them. And so therefore, doing it that way guarantees you don't get neurotic, because what would be neurotic? It would be where you reverse it and you say, oh, I had this dream, something bad's going to happen, and I'm going to go and take a bad rebirth or something like that. And you made yourself neurotic. Maybe it might motivate you, but it's not the best way to be motivated. So just always say, okay, I had this dream last night, and okay, it's my attitude about life, possibly yesterday primarily, the way I've been dealing with things and such. And then you adjust your attitude, and then you've taken more control of your life, which is the point of not being neurotic. Second point, what's the theme of my life? Lingren Rinpoche was the one that emphasized that a great deal, because it can be a source of a lot of interesting information if the theme of your life is very clear. Like I'm a Buddhist, a Bodhisattva, possibly I'm a Tantric Bodhisattva, I wish to be of benefit. And then within that theme, of course, then there's your wisdom and compassion. If they're very functional for you, then it could be that what your mind picks up, whether it's with other people or with yourself, could be insightful. I will emphasize that I think about 90% of our dreams are about us, even though we might dream of somebody that's really close or somebody that's really important. I would always first say, look at yourself and just say, this person might be personifying something about me. It's a very good sort of question to ask, rather than saying, oh, I had dreamt of my brother and my brother's, going to die, or he's going to do this or that, or whatever might you have, even close family members. Now, that doesn't disclude, though, that sometimes, we're a practitioner, we're sensitive, we have a certain sense of ethics about our life, what's important, not important, that we could pick up something about a friend or a family member or something that's about them that would then be possibly insightful. Of course, then the question comes, do you sit around and say, I had this dream of you and you're going on the wrong path? And then they go like, well, what's your, mind your own business, So again, that's where the skill of a bodhisattva, it's sort of fun that, we try to be a benefit to all universal sentient beings. But a very important factor of that is intelligence. Like, what is most appropriate for this or that sentient being? It's not just I sort of evangelize and tell everybody what they should do with themselves. If you think of the great teachers, that they don't. Well, some of them might tell you what to do, but generally speaking, they're just sort of quiet and they listen to you, and they might make some small comments. But you could say they sort of give responsibility for you back to you, maybe helping you understand something a little bit. So that's something to take into consideration in regards to trying to be a bodhisattva. I know my wife often complains. She says, you're too nice to too many people. What about me? So I sort of have to be careful about being too friendly and nice and supportive, because sometimes family members feel that I've neglected them. So anyway, but then that's just, as I say, that's intelligence, knowing how to be intelligent in your relationships with others. And it's, we are talking about just common sense, what's happening. But maybe in your dreams you might have something. But I want to emphasize, I always would say 90% of your dreams are about you, 10% might be about somebody else. You could check up subtly and sort of see if you have a dream about somebody. But I would always emphasize no. Anyway, there's this very interesting life. So come back to the principal thing is, what's the theme of my life? That's really, really important. It's our graduated path. That's our theme of our life. I have a precious human rebirth. I've got self-esteem. I've got potentiality. I know what's important and not important because things are impermanent. I'm inspired by the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, especially by the Buddha and my gurus. I'm being careful with my karma. That's cultivating yourself. And then dealing with your delusions, developing wisdom, and then finally bodhicitta, working for the benefit of sentient beings. That's the theme of our lives as Buddhists. So with clarity about the theme of your life, that could be that will be beneficial if you're starting to sort of be more conscious of your dreams. And then just again, as I said, always take into consideration that it's that it is mostly about you, even if it seems so much about somebody else. It's actually Lama Yeshe gave me the comment when I used to come and say, I dreamt of you and it was so wonderful. And he'd say, that's your Lama Yeshe, that's not me. So that, I think that's a good thing. So if you dream of somebody in your life or something, say, ooh, that's my so-and-so, it's not them. But again, I think people do personify certain things. And so you could find that somebody really does personify something that's within you. When I did my 3-year retreat, actually I did 5 years. I did 2 years of preliminaries and then 3 years of Yamataka. My characters, my dreams, because again, I didn't have anything to entertain me. I was on the side of a mountain. I didn't have any visitors. The only thing I would do is every 6 weeks go and see Lingam Poche and just check in. And my Tibetan server, the person that brought me my food every 2 weeks, he was a young Tibetan. He would show up, put the food down, say, "You okay?" and then leave. Oh, I didn't have a social life, although I did, because I was a little bit afraid about going crazy. I had some friends or a friend come up every 6 weeks and just have a cup of tea with me in the afternoon just to make sure I was sane and everything was okay. But point being is that because I had such an incredibly closed off or isolated environment, my dream life became very, very active, and I'd have repetitive characters. In fact, I sort of would have certain group of people, and the way I was interpreting it, though, one of them represented my attachments, another one represented my desire to become more enlightened, another one represented some making stupid decisions and things. I sort of was able to personify them quite well and such. I remember once, I'm getting you into your own dreams, okay? Once I had someone came by and visited, and I got really adamant about, like, well, sexual desire, and I'm a monk and I have to be really positive and virtuous and this and that. I was really intense about it. And that night I dreamed of a snake, sort of a naga or snake or whatever, and had the Bible, and it was beating on the Bible, and it was saying, this is the truth. This is what you have to do. And I'm going to go to the village and tell everybody. So we got in a Jeep and drove away. I mean, crazy dreams. And I thought, okay, well, the snakes often represent sexuality. It's Kundalini is one of the examples with that. And here I had a fundamentalist snake beating on the Bible. And I thought, Jhampa, you're way too serious. And I had to adjust my attitude a little bit and say, okay, things happen, I wasn't a monk, so I wasn't having sexual relationships, but even in your attitude, you have to be sort of careful, about being too intense and narrow-minded about your life. I mean, sexuality is the cause of the human race, so it's not like something bad. Anyway, so again, dreams could be signposts. What's the theme of your life? And then we're going to shift over to actually becoming more lucid. So last week I gave you that paper. One of the best things is called dream sign. And when I read that, it was so revealing because, you note them down. And I mean, Stephen LeVerge does a very good job with this and stuff. But if you start noting down dream sign, what happens is you start to become conscious of it. And then, for example, let's say you dreamt of a bus regularly in your dreams for whatever reason. Okay. And so in the daytime, when you see a bus, you maybe could pinch yourself and say, am I dreaming? Oh, okay. No, I'm not dreaming. But what will happen is, because that's a recurring dream sign, when you do, let's say you are dreaming, and then you see a bus, you go, oh, and then you maybe, oh, yeah, I am dreaming, and then you wake up. And it's a very distinctive experience to become lucid. It's not something that's sort of haphazard. You know you're dreaming, and you know it's a dream. And we're going to talk about that in a few seconds about what to do with that. But coming back to it, dream science is really, really beneficial to start noting them down and things. So that when you start to dream of them, then you can say, oh, maybe I'm dreaming. The other one that I like is called like testing reality. And so, for example, in a dream, you can put your arm through a wall. You like, let's say you did get lucid a little bit. And just some quick notes about if you do get lucid, don't leave the immediate environment. Because what can happen is you get lucid and you think, wow. And then you go into, if you want to, you go shooting out of the room and you do loop-de-loops in the sky and you're having this very strong sort of emotional experience about stuff. And then actually what you do is you end up waking up. You fall out of the lucid dream because you got too excited. It's one of the big problems with lucid dreaming is to get too emotional. But what you can do is, if you did become lucid, is stay in that place. And what each one of us is a little different, but there will be a sensation that's happening in your body that is the sign that you're lucid dreaming. And honestly, lucid dreaming is not that fantastic. It's not that mystical. Many psychologists, especially for athletes, teach them how to lucid dream to be a better athlete. You can look all this up on Google. It's not sort of secret special knowledge. So don't think that I'm saying something that's like highly revelatory of my spiritual practice or something like that. I'm sorry, it's not. Lucid dreaming can happen for a person down the street who has no dharma. I mean, I've met people that have that ability. So coming back to the point is, if you do become even a little lucid, stay in the environment, but then test things. So one of the things is you can put your hand against a wall and then you put some pressure because you're lucid, you're in a dream. And then what happens is your arm with enough pressure goes through the wall. Okay. And you go, okay, really, and so you experience, you become more conscious of the conscious experience of lucid dreaming. That's really, really important because then, let's say you can almost invoke it if you get good at it. So it's a definite sensation of recognizing the physical sensation of being lucid in your dreams. Okay. So you test the local environment and such like that. Now, so dream signs, testing reality is what I was just talking about. So for example, right now you're sitting there, maybe, well, let's say maybe you're at your desk or something like that. Well, you put your arm on the desk and you push. And of course, your arm can't go through the desk because you're weight. But what can happen is maybe in your lucid dream, you won't realize you're lucid, but you're sort of thinking, you think, well, maybe I'm lucid, and then you put your arm against the desk and your hand went through and you go, oh, I'm lucid. Okay. And it's funny. I mean, there's our mind plays such funny games with us about whether to being lucid and such. Another one that's really, again, very, very good, I think it was from Stephen LaVerge, is that, and this is very good when you're a beginner, because let's say, you get lucid and stuff and you're doing something. And then what happens is you have this sensation of falling out of the lucid dream. That's literally that. Like it's like you're doing something, I'm losing it. And then you're gonna wake up in your bed. Okay. What he shared, and this works. I mean, a lot of the things work, but this one really works, is put your arms on your chest as you're still lucid and spin. Okay, so you're starting to lose your lucid dream, you're starting to fall out of it, throw your arms in your chest and then feel you're spinning. And then what chances are what'll happen is this is my first experience of this, is that I woke up in my bed again. I thought, oh damn it, I woke up, it's no fun, And so as I'm sitting in my bed, I look out the window, and of course the curtains weren't pulled. I mean, they would have been pulled in real life, but the thing is, in my not being conscious of being lucid, I'm lucid, was I looked out the window and there was a forklift, I don't know why, anyway, on the street doing loop-de-loops. And I went, oh, okay, I'm lucid. But my mind wouldn't want to believe that. But so this is interesting. As I say, once you start getting into this, it's very intriguing and stuff. So again, if you start to lose your lucid dream, throw your arms in your chest, spin, and you might be able to come back again, experiment with it. I mean, it is your own consciousness. It's not somebody else's. And these are very much experiential things. But the bottom line, though, is that it's your Dharma practice. I'm telling you all the fantastic fun stuff, but what's your Dharma practice? I'll give you a really sort of gross example of, let's say you start getting lucid and you're not particularly a virtuous person. Well, you can suddenly decide, well, I saw this person the other day, I'd love to have sex with them. And you can go offer and have sex with them. It's your own lucid dream, nothing's stopping you other than your own decision. But then that's the sign of that you're not a Dharma practitioner. I mean, I'm not saying having sex is good or bad. I'm just saying is that would be an indication of that really your Dharma practice, or what your wish to be of benefit to sentient beings, isn't really being actualized in your lucid dreams. You're just basically, you can just say, having pleasure for your own gratification. So one of the big things with lucid dreaming, especially as a Dharma practitioner, is you have a chance to practice. And that's incredible. In your lucid dream, you can do so many interesting things, which I'll arrive at in a few secs. I want to come back to first off, okay, we're Buddhists, we're meditators. What was it, Jeff? You were teaching mindfulness. That's the key of lucid dreaming. That's the key of finding a state of consciousness that's subtle. There's nothing more special than that. I mean, then there's some awareness and some being astute, but aside from that, it's mostly mindfulness. So your Dharma practice, being a bodhisattva, being mindfulness, your 6 perfections, those things, those are that's real life. If you develop it well, and and now you're getting some instruction on lucid dreaming, you could then start to maybe benefit yourself a little bit by what your dreams are telling you. But remember that if your life hasn't been that clearly organized, your dreams would be all over the map. Just because you don't have that thread of what is the theme of my life very clear yet. So that's really important facet of being able to utilize dreams. So Dharma practice, the thread of my life, the theme of my life, and then dreams are signposts. Okay, that's much more important than all of the fancy stuff about lucid dreaming. Now, come back to lucid dreaming though. So you have dream signs, testing reality, and then just basically mindfulness and daily activity. and such, and you can start to have develop. Do remember that each one of us is different. Some of us have of the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, air. Some of if our earth element is very strong, maybe we don't dream very much. According to science, of course, and again, this is just something you can do on Google, we all dream 100%. Because if you stop the ability, I mean, they did this I guess in Stanford laboratories, if they stop somebody from entering into REM, rapid eye movement period, states of consciousness, then within about 2 weeks, they start hallucinating. So there's a test they did. So every time somebody got to REM, they would wake them up, so that they didn't have that opportunity to have their mind sort of do its mechanics or whatever it would want to do. And so after 2 weeks, these people started to hallucinate about stuff because their mind didn't have this ability to, I don't know, let go of things. Okay. So even if you think, I don't dream, you're dreaming. Because if you're not, you're going to be having hallucinations and such. That's just from the science of it. So come back to that, maybe some of you might take a little harder to get lucid in your dreams. I remember a long time ago when I was talking with, this was Alan Wallace, he had a little microphone that went underneath his well, it was a little thing you can buy. I think it's called lucidity.com. They have a website, and in there you can buy things to help you get lucid. And one of them was a little speaker that goes underneath your pillow, and in the middle of the night, you have a little recording that goes with it, I think. I don't remember the details so much. And so as you're sleeping, then this voice will start saying, hello, get lucid, talk to you and help you become lucid. One of the things I did buy was one of these things you put on your face that basically recognizes REM. It's got little sensors. And so when it has REM, these little lights will flash to sort of make you become conscious. So I put one of those on and I was using them. And then I started to dream, I'm in bed sleeping. I started to dream, and suddenly I had this really obnoxious person with a camera with a flash on it going, flash, flash in my face. Because my mind wouldn't register that it was the thing I was wearing on my face telling me, hey, you're lucid, or you could wake up. And so my mind just interpreted it as somebody with a flash camera, and it made me really angry. I woke up angry. So I didn't find that particular item was very useful. But as I say, there are lots of little things you can buy. I mean, maybe on Amazon or whatever. I think lucidity.com is Stephen LaBerge's thing, and that's really good because it is quite professional. He's in Stanford University. He has a street laboratory. I mean, lots of really, really good information is coming out of there. So we're talking about initially starting to get lucid. The main thing is, okay, dream signs, testing reality. You could have some paraphernalia maybe help you a little bit. Some things with the bedding. Don't have really warm bedding because it'll make you sleep really deeply. So if you can sleep with just a bed sheet or cool and such, main point is your body is a little bit cold or cool. Second thing is have windows open so there's lots of fresh air so that the room's not stuffy. And third one would be is also don't eat heavy food at nighttime. So don't have a steak and potatoes and expect that you're going to remember your dreams. Maybe have a salad or a smoothie with some fruit or something like that. It's nice because I live in Mexico and our main meal is lunchtime. Well, 2 p.m. or something like that, basically. So at nighttime, we have a smoothie, a piece of fruit, something like that. So it's very conducive to not sleeping too heavily. So those are just some thoughts you could do. Light bedding, windows open, fresh air, and then don't eat a heavy meal at nighttime if it's convenient for you. And you will have your body will be maybe have a better capacity. The big one, of course, is motivation, and whether it's in the Tibetan system or in Stephen LaBerge's system, always motivation. What I try to do is just when I go to sleep at night, is I just say, whoever I meet in my dreams, may I help them. It's a nice way to go to sleep. It's a positive thought, and if I do get lucid, I tend to try to go in that direction. I don't get lucid that much anymore. When I was in my retreat, it happened a lot more. After that, then it happens. Now, I'm lucky once a month if I get lucid. But I have a very, very active dream life. I mean, I dream at least 3 periods of night between going to sleep and like 1 in the morning, I dream. Then from 1 till 3, I have another set of dreams. And then from 3 till 5 or whatever, I have another set of dreams. I have a very active consciousness that way, just for whatever reason. But whatever, it's sort of entertaining. When again, coming back to being like, if you're in a retreat, when I was in my retreat, because I'd only sleep 6 hours a night, go to bed at 9 and actually wake up at 3 in the morning. That was sort of the time schedule you said if you're in a really big, serious retreat. And so when I would dream, sometimes I'd be dreaming something, and I just sorry, this is boring. And I'm not lucid, I'm just boring. And I'd reach up, and in my dream, I'd reach up, and there would be a TV in front of me with the old channel selector. And I would turn the channel, and then I'll go back into another dream. I mean, your minds can be very powerful. So long and the short of it is that diet, room, not heavy, motivation, those are very good things for starting to move towards that. And again, maybe you're going to have, well, let's say, a lot of dreams. I like to call them candy floss. Just meaning is that they're just candy floss. They're nothing that particularly important. They're just your mind maybe figuring something out or releasing some tension or something like that. So it's not like every night you're going to be dreaming a Dharma dream. That sort of would be a bit extreme. But it can be that, several times a week or a couple times a month, you have a dream that's a little bit more meaningful. Normally, it would be related to something during the day that you did that maybe had some import about how your Dharma practice is. Again, this is okay. This next thing I'm going to say is totally a Jhampa comment. I like to try to differentiate if I'm making something that's sort of my thing, but that I sort of find that it's like in your mind there's this sort of deeper place. It's sort of like it's what your mother told you should or shouldn't do. I mean, that's the only way I can sort of refer to it is that there's sort of this deeper sense of ethics. And, if your mother or your father were quite ethical and they said, oh, that wasn't a very good thing to do, then that voice sort of is deep down inside of you. So it would seem that when you're sleeping, that from that sort of deeper place in consciousness, there can be sort of, I wouldn't say a judgment or maybe a bit of a critique about maybe some of your actions of the previous day. I would tend to put it on sort of coming from your mother and father, because when you're young, they tend to give you a lot of your ethics about your life. Of course, it could be your gurus and things, but we're talking about nothing that's particularly visual. It's just a deep feeling like, oh, my mother would have been proud of me, or, oh, my mother would have been angry with me. It's sort of a deep biological thing. So I just share that a lot of dreams might fall in that category, but that could be Dharma, I mean, especially if your mother was a Bodhisattva or just a very good person and stuff that affects your state of consciousness. Okay. Anyway, but just I'm giving you lots of little bits of information to maybe reflect on a bit. So come back to then motivation and such, and maybe a lot of your dreams won't be that meaningful. If you go into a retreat, they can start being more meaningful. This is where then we come back to the Tibetan system, which is quite good, that you can break the sleep time into 3 categories. From when you go to bed till about 1 in the morning, it normally is stuff of the day. Then from 1 in the morning till 3 in the morning, you could be affected by, well, they say affected by spirits, but just being affected by things going on in the environment around you, so to speak. Then from 3 till 5, those dreams might be more meaningful. So this is in the Tibetan dream yoga system. It's quite accurate that you could say certainly like your superficial mind is the first period of sleeping. Then maybe something that's sort of affecting you from the day, somebody who criticized you or something like that might affect you a little bit in the second part of the night. And then in the last part, a few hours before you wake up, those ones might be more personal things that are of importance for you to really look at. Okay, so for example, when you take a tantric initiation, normally the teacher would explain it that way, that it's the last dreams of the night that you should be sort of mindful of. Now, one thing that's, I think I mentioned it in the previous week, but be aware of cultural differences. So for example, red flowers for the Tibetans and actually for in India are considered very bad sign, and why? Well, in Indian culture, if the local politician or the king or whoever happened to be sort of the main thing wanted to have somebody assassinated, they send them a bouquet of red flowers that would arrive at the door to say, oh, you are now going to be eliminated. So the connotation of red flowers was death or assassination. So the Tibetans sort of accepted that belief. For us, red flowers are love. So we have to be very careful not to take a Tibetan or a different culture's interpretation of something and just start carte blanche apply it to ourselves. It might not fit. So red flowers is one example, and that again comes often in tantric initiations that talk about that. The other one is to dream of an owl. Now, actually, Sherpa Tuchel and I talked about this a long time ago. He was one of the translators in the Tibetan library a long time ago, and then I think he lives in New York now, or no, he's back in Tibet or Dharamsala. Anyway, he said to me, he said, "Oh, for we Tibetans, owls are considered two-faced because an owl can be looking this way, and then suddenly they can be looking backwards, isn't it? They have a very flexible neck. Okay, so for a Tibetan, an owl is considered a very bad thing because it's sort of not being very honest. Whereas in I think our culture, I mean, certainly for the Native American culture, owls are a bird of wisdom. Isn't it? See what I mean? So that's it's important in your working with your dreams that you do appreciate maybe your own culture. Just personally, I periodically dream of Tibetan temples or Buddhist temples. I'll dream a lot more of churches. It's this place of sacred, it's a sacred space. Just this way my mind works. I mean, I've never dreamt of Buddha Shakyamuni, but I do dream of, for example, Dalai Lama or Lingam Poche or Lama Yeshe. So I would interpret that as spiritual parts of myself. Okay. But so I'm talking a little bit about imagery, things that might come up in your dreams. Do be careful of that, you are interpreting it, within what may be something part of your culture. And again, there's different cultures. I mean, there's the Northern European culture, and there's African culture, and there's South American culture, and they all have their own little tweaks about different things and what they mean. Okay, so to appreciate that about yourself and your own history. And even if you might not particularly believe in it, it is sort of interesting that it might be sort of a deeper part of your psyche, just because of the culture, that like maybe your family was Italian or Italian background. So maybe there's some sort of Italian things there, okay? Anyway, so coming back to then getting lucid, intention, and then a lot of dreams might just be candy floss, but periodically you might have some reasonably interesting dreams. As I was saying, then they could possibly be related a little bit with what you did yesterday, like you were rude to somebody. Or remember I told the story of Mr. Long, my English teacher, who repeatedly showed up in my dreams for years, and I could never figure out what the hell he meant. And then finally I criticized somebody really intensively, and Mr. Long just canceled my test totally. And then I finally got it. Mr. Long is my judgmental mind. And so I finally got what the image meant. And that could be potential for yourselves, especially if you have a recurring dream. Often a recurring dream just indicates there's something you're not dealing with very effectively. And so it keeps repeating itself because it's trying to help you or to get you out of that or to think. So sometimes it might take a long time. So I had this repeating dream of Mr. Long, never could figure out what the heck he meant until finally that particular situation happened and I got it. And then I haven't dreamed of Mr. Long for years now, since once I sort of realized to not be just so judgmental. Okay, so there we're talking about imagery and dreams, and sometimes it's the relative dreams and the way of interpreting them correctly. Okay, now because this is about lucid dreaming, we're going to shift over. Now this comes straight from Tsongkhapa, but we're going to talk about it in sort of more modern terms a little bit. But Tsongkhapa in the Six Yogas in Naropa, in his commentary, mentions, for example, getting lucid is the first step, and then having become lucid, then learning how to work with things. So because this class is about that. Next class, we're going to do Vajrasattva, and then we're going to do an more open session and discuss dreams and such, because you'll be more conscious of your dream life for 3 weeks at that particular point. So there should be some juicy material. I lead 10-day retreats, and in there I often introduce, like, because we're in a retreat, well, I'll introduce sort of being more conscious of your dream life. But then I always have to sort of caution people to say, be a little bit careful, because if you start to talk about some very vivid dream, you're actually exposing yourself, like that, oh, you have this problem or you have that problem. So sometimes it's good to be a little bit careful, judicious with what you share. Okay. But coming back to then getting lucid. So following Tsongkhapa, then once you get a little bit lucid, then you practice Dharma. Okay. Now, a couple of things, he refers to it as, if you're in a bad circumstance, learn how to transform it into a good experience or something like that. So if you get lucid, okay, so this is very much about lucidity, okay? So all of the previous things, your Dharma practice, your mindfulness, those things are very, very important. But let's talk about you start getting lucid a little bit more regularly. Okay, in that case then, first off, okay, you get lucid, but then you say, hey, I'm a bodhisattva. I practice the Dharma. So you don't go and immediately, do something inappropriate or silly or something like that. So one, of course, is first, if you do get lucid and you're in a particular room or you're in a field or something, don't run away from that place, but stay there and try to sort of really become conscious of the feelings that are going on in your body. And there are very specific ones if you start looking at them, because they're a very good way of recognizing you're lucid. And invoking it, even when you get to a certain amount of clarity. Okay. Also, then you can because you're not exciting yourself too much. One of the biggest problems with lucidity is you get too excited and you wake up. So that's where you don't want to get yourself all emotional or like, oh wow, I'm lucid, and then you wake up and you think, oh damn it, and then maybe it takes a week or two to have another one. So that's sort of frustrating. So stay in one place, just experiment, maybe levitate a little bit, or do something, walk around. Now, there's something that applies very much to, you might say, the karma that you've accumulated. Because if you have not got much accumulated positive karma, you'll find you will not have much ability in your dreams. Okay, so you could say, having the ability to do lots of really interesting things, and then, and in your lucid dream is related to how much positive energy you have, okay? So if you don't have a lot, then there's gonna be a bit of a problem. So I'm not, there's not a judgment or something, it's just, if you find you get lucid and not much is happening, well, maybe you don't have a really a big bank account of positive energy and stuff. So maybe you have to work a little bit more on attitude and being more constructive in your daily life, have a more meaningful thing. One of the things that happened when I came back to Canada in 1984, okay, I've been a monk for 14 years. I've done 5 years of retreat plus lots of things. I've done 10 years of teachings with some really great teachers. I came back, and of course, culture, no support. For some reason, I didn't go back to being an FPMT or with one of the monasteries or something. I don't know why, but I went back to be with family. I guess I was a little bit lonely or something. But anyway, so then within about 8 months, I realized that being ordained with 253 vows wasn't very easy. So I returned my ordination. I didn't break it. I returned it. That's the difference there and such. And then, of course, I did marry somebody. And she'd been in Dharma in India for 7 years. So she had the same teachers and everything. So I married her. And then, of course, well, let's start a Dharma center. Okay, we both wanted to do that. We both had that feeling. So I need to get a job. Okay, so, well, resume, 14 years Buddhist monk, it doesn't get you a job. Okay, so what I did was I thought, well, what do I like doing? Well, I like woodworking and tools. I'm a guy. Okay, so I went down to a local hardware store and I said, they had an opening for a job, and they hired me the same day. It was really great. So, so suddenly I used to call myself Dorji Woodchip. Anyway, but I got a job. So then my point, and this is part of why I'm talking about that. Then having done that, then I had to say, okay, well, here I've got all those years, all those teachings, all those blessings, and I'm in a hardware store. Okay, well, what's all that about, Jhampa? Okay, well, what's it about is that someone walks in the store and I say, may I help you? That's it. Just, may I help you? And may I help you buy a screwdriver? All the way to enlightenment. Okay, so you can bring your Dharma practice into everything you're doing. It's just a question of being intelligent about it. So if you think that going to my work and my Dharma practice are opposite, you got a problem. I mean, remember mind training, bring everything into the path. So when you go to work, make it your Dharma practice. I mean, it could be as simple as, oh, good, hello, may I help you? You know, and then may I help you might be just, you know, sign a piece of paper or something. But the thing is, your attitude is very friendly. And people pick up on that even on an unconscious level. What was funny, because I never said that I was a Buddhist or anything. I mean, I was very quiet about that. But I worked in that hardware store for about 3 years, which is really lucky because then we got to build a big meditation hall, you know, all the woodworking stuff at wholesale. Sort of quite lucky. Anyway, so we did that. But then I left because I managed to shift over and be more involved in Buddhism and teaching and translating and things like that. But I went back to the hardware store a year later and sort of saw some of my old friends there. And they said, oh, you know, people still come in and say, hey, where's that Buddhist guy? So in a funny little way, you know, I mean, if you can bring Dharma to your work environment, and you don't need to evangelize, but just maybe somewhere they say, oh, well, I meditate. You know, you're bringing your Dharma practice into your daily life and into the daily activities you're involved with. And again, not evangelizing stuff, but just being a nice person. Hello, may I help you? You know, maybe somebody sees you sort of like calming down a little bit and you say, what are you doing? I says, oh, I'm just practicing mindfulness breathing, you know. Oh, so many little ways to help people become a little bit more conscious. And then maybe they get interested in Buddhism. And so finally, you know, in Buddhism, our way of evangelizing is living our Dharma. Okay. Now, I'm talking about all of that because when you get lucid, sure, it's fun and exciting, and suddenly you can do loop-de-loops and you can do all sorts of fun stuff. But that's where we want to practice the Dharma. So you want that to then sort of be what you're doing. Now, so one of the things that's intriguing is if you would like to sort of, you know, see your guru, maybe like, for example, you know, dear Lama Zopa Rinpoche has passed away, but it doesn't mean you couldn't invoke him. I mean, I still dream of Ling Rinpoche and even of Lama Yeshe. And Lama Yeshe is very alive in my dreams sometimes, you know, and really interesting. And he gives me some very interesting advice, even though he's passed away and he's been reincarnated. He's a young Spanish man now. I still dream of Lama Yeshe, okay? And it's really quite informative. But if you would like to have a teacher in your dream, you know, and then you say, okay, well, I got lucid and I'm there, you know, and I'd really like, you know, to meet my Geshe so-and-so, who's one of my teachers. But, you know, nothing's going to happen because unless you've got a lot of power, okay, which not one of us do. But what you can do is you can say, okay, I'm looking in this direction. And then you say, I think that Geshe so-and-so is behind me. And then you turn around. And if you're good at it, your teacher will be there. So that's the way you invoke teachers. Like, it's hard to just say, I want the Dalai Lama to appear in front of me. Okay, maybe, I doubt it though. But if you say, okay, so I'm lucid, I really would like to have, you know, see my teacher, you know, even if he's passed away. Okay, well, I'm going to turn around and they're going to be sitting in a chair. That's the power of your consciousness. And again, that's part of your merit. Another thing, of course, can be is that you do that and they're there, but then they don't talk to you. That's a sign of a lack of merit, that you don't have enough merit for them to give you advice. So there's sort of, it's a funny little thing about that, just how really virtuous are you? How much is Dharma really part of your daily life? If that's really a deep part of your being, who you are when you wake up in the morning, then there's a lot of interesting things that happen in your dreams that are very special. I mean, your lucid dreams, you know, I mean, was it Milarepa said, he said the Rechungpa, when you go to sleep, you go unconscious. When I go to sleep, I go to Amitabha's Pure Land to get teachings. That applies. And there was a boy actually in Montreal, I think. He's a young, well, now he's about a 40-year-old man. he was an incarnation of some very famous Geshe and such like that. And so, and this is I think it was in autobiography. It was in a thing I saw. Maybe it was a YouTube video or something. I can remember. It was quite a good 20 years ago, I guess. Anyway, he like what happened is he's a young boy. He's maybe like 5 or 6 years old, and you know, he says every night I go and I get these teachings. And he had a younger sister, and she said, "Really?" She says, "Yeah, you can come with me if you want to." So he says, "Okay." So she got, you know, like this is the way I heard the story. I can remember it's totally accurate, but you know, she got a little lunch bag together and everything like that. She went to sleep, I don't know, maybe in the same bed with him or something like that, you know. And then the next morning they wake up, and he said, "Oh, I was there and I got teachings. Did you come with me?" And she said, "No, I had nothing, you know." Anyway, so that was how they recognized him as an incarnation and of some very special Lama. And then he did go to India, he did study Tibetan, he did do everything. But then when he got about, I think, somewhere in his 20s, he basically came back to Canada and said, this doesn't work for me like that. And I mean, maybe he's still doing Dharma, I don't know that. But let's just say that there was that he went a little bit different way. Maybe he's doing something more in psychology, I don't know. But anyway, the main point is that in your dreams, if you've got a big focus in the Dharma, is, you know, not to be judgmental or say, "Oh, gee, I don't have these sorts of dreams." Well, cultivate yourself. You know, I mean, he had a cultivation from a previous life that paid off for him. For ourselves, we can do it, that we start cultivating it and such, and then things happen. It's interesting, you know. I mean, how anyway, it's so interesting for me. My Dharma practice has so much more life by being more conscious of what's going on in my dreams, because it's sort of immediately telling me, "Jhampa, you just blew it. Like you were judgmental, you were rude, or you're just basically not focused because I'm not having anything particularly good dreams." Whereas if I start to become more devotional or more, you know, more sincere, more authentic, well, then suddenly, you know, I'm in a room with the Dalai Lama, and I go, "Wow," you know, and then I check up and say, "Yeah, but I'm trying to practice harder." Now, to have a dream with the Dalai Lama all the time, I think would be a bit extreme. And then, you know, I mean, there's all sorts of little factors to what I'm trying to share with you. But the bottom, or the long and the short, though, is that your daily life is what's most important. And when you get lucid, you have these things. So coming back to them, you get a little bit lucid. Spend some time in that place and hang out and walk around and get familiar with the feeling and the capacity of being lucid. Elevate yourself a little bit, but don't do anything too fantastic because you'll mostly wake yourself up. Okay, second thing, try to make it a Dharma thing, that like you're bringing all circumstances into the path. So that would be the second thing. Then if you get reasonably good, you can start turning things. So I think it is that well, I had a friend of mine that they were having a dream, and suddenly there was a snake at a distance that they felt was a little bit dangerous. And so the snake turned towards him, and as it came towards him, he turned him into a bunny rabbit. This is what a friend of mine said this to me. So, I mean, if you have some abilities, you can start doing that. You can turn things into other things. Or I think Tsongkhapa turns about it, you know, like in your lucid dream, you come to a river where you can produce a bridge to cross over the river or something like that. Okay, next week, I do want to talk a lot about imagery and meaning of things, because a lot of what we're going to, you know, in our dreams does have a lot to do with our cultural history, has a lot to do with our own psyche, how we've grown up, maybe what we loved and read and things like that, all sorts of stuff. That'll be next week with Vajrasattva, and I'll explain it then. But for right now, we're just talking about getting lucid. Okay, so if you get a little bit good, try to turn things into something else. So whatever happens to be, and do it within the sense of the Dharma, you know, and whatever. So then it becomes useful. Now, the last part, because we're down to the last 20 minutes. I'm so sorry for being 30 minutes late, but thank you, Jeff. Okay, so the next week I won't do this. Okay, next I'm too embarrassed to show up late. Okay, so about lucid dreaming clarity. Okay, I taught this years ago to one student in Canada, and she said, "Oh yeah, I can get lucid. You know, I wake up in bed. It's like, you know, 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. I sort of go back to sleep, and I get lucid, and it was massively boring, Jhampa. You know, so I thought, okay, well." there's different levels and different capacities of lucidity. That's really important to know. So one is, and again, I think Stephen LaBerge and even Alan Wallace talks about this, is that, you know, if you wake up, try to be really, really motivated about getting lucid, you know, let's say at 3 or 4 in the morning. And when you go back to sleep, see if you can then sort of invoke a lucid dream. So that's something that they teach. And it's sometimes not that difficult. Again, you know, like I say, you wake up, it's not quite time to get out of bed, the alarm clock hasn't gone off, and so you sort of doze off again, and you end up with this sort of reasonably lucid dream, you know, some sort of like some capacity, you know, you're dreaming. But it's not, I just want to identify, it's sort of like a level 2 lucid dream. Not very, it's good. I mean, you're getting some experience, fine, but it's not really, really lucidity. Lucidity is up at the 8 and 9 level. And that happens, well, it happens with Dharma practice, maybe it happens with your karma, that you have some capacity to have that. And that's where it's vivid. It's just like wonderful. It's just so vivid. And I mean, I don't know if you ever, you know, those VR headsets, where you put your hands in front of you. It's better than that, okay, because it's your own capacity. So, so the point being is that whatever time capacity you get, whether you get a level 1 lucid dream or a level 4 or a level 10, really that doesn't matter. You're getting lucid. That's one good thing. But do be aware that there are really very vivid states of lucidity, which are really very, I mean, very impressive. You know, I mean, it can be really, I don't know, evocative or evocative, something like that, very powerful. Now, again, out of Stephen LaBerge's material, he says that he wrote about this in the terms of, he said, if you're trying to control it too much, the vividness will go down. If you let things be more spontaneous, the vividness will go up. It's an interesting thing. So again, if you start getting lucid and you start to try to control it too much, well, you might find it okay. It gets, I don't know, it gets boring or something. So let go a little bit and allow things to happen and stuff. Okay. And from there, then things should be just, you know, like you should find the vividness and the clarity and things like that gets a little bit better. There's Venerable Roger. He's done a huge number of retreats. There used to be Venerable Roger and Venerable Paula. They separated and then divorced, and they're monk and nun. Anyway, so she's now a lay teacher in the Shetland Islands, I believe. Really, really good teacher. You know, her main practice is Chode and all the other things, Tara. Just a wonderful teacher. Anyway, but coming back to Roger, because he'd done a lot of retreats, he and I sort of discussed a little bit our capacities in lucidity and such like that. It was fun. And I said to him that I had this experience and I didn't have an understanding for what it was, but if you get lucid and let's say you're flying, you can find that there's these lines, I don't know, these like electrical cables that are in the sky. And if you hit one of them, you wake up, just bang, you know, I mean, sorry, it's all over, baby. You know, you did something wrong. And I never knew what they were, but just knew to avoid them, okay? And so I talked to Roger about it, and he's got very, very good experiences in meditation and all of that. He said, oh, it's the net of Indra. I went, oh, that's interesting. And so supposedly, I mean, again, this is sort of the fantastic stuff, but if you do get lucid and you do fly around a little bit and stuff like that, there is sort of like this, you call it a very big net. Like it's not like tight like a mosquito screen, but there's sort of these, I don't know, electrical cables that go through the space of the sky of your lucid dream, and avoid them. Okay, because they're I don't know what they are, but they're just they wake you up, and if you touch one, it sort of bounces you pretty hard. So anyway, he said it was called the net of Indra. I found that intriguing. I'm sure there's massive amounts of stuff out there in Google, and many people that have all of their philosophies and stuff about it and things. So there's lots of stuff to look at. I'm trying to present something for us as a Buddhist practitioner to help us with our Dharma practice. So I'll come back to what I would consider the most important. What's the theme of your life? That's absolutely the most important thing, because you want to make it useful. Having abilities, whether it's lucid dream or whatever of the minor cities or abilities or whatever you want to talk about, they're completely pointless if you don't have a Dharma practice. I mean, they're just an ability. That doesn't mean you're not a nice person. So much more important to be a nice person, to be a Dharma practitioner, to be a bodhisattva. So even if you never have a lucid dream, being a bodhisattva is great. It's the best ever. Don't ever negate that or put it down as sort of a less thing. But if you do happen to have an ability, like for example, you start to lucid dream a little bit, practice the Dharma. It's a wonderful opportunity. And then on this final sort of note, if we always talk about the ultimate nature of reality. Okay, the phenomena is empty of self-existence. Okay, now it's really important to put that in two perspectives. Relative perspective, phenomena are appearing. They lack independent self-existence, but they are interdependent, and then merely labeled, but they're interdependent. We're in a vast ocean of interdependence. Relative perspective on the nature of reality. Ultimate perspective, open like the space of the sky. No form whatsoever. Consciousness is open, empty of any independent self-existent, non-dual, bliss and void. Okay, that's ultimate perspective. Relative perspective is I'm in an ocean of interdependence. So, I mean, for all of you sitting in the room right now, are you conscious that you're immersed in the atmosphere? You're no different than a fish in a fish tank. We just don't think about it, but we are. I mean, if I move my hands, I feel the air around me. Now we're in Mexico, it's hot. The air's hot, Point being is I'm immersed. And not only I'm immersed, take a breath, I'm penetrated. Every cell in my body needs that oxygen. I am, just by breathing, 100% interdependent, empty of any self-existence. Relative perspective on the nature of reality. So if you start getting lucid, part of that states of consciousness is that sense of interdependence. That it's not like I'm dreaming I got lucid and I'm seeing maybe a wolf in the distance and I go, oh my God, there's a wolf. No, I have capacity to transform that wolf into a bunny rabbit, by the power of my lucid dreaming and my Dharma practice and whatever else. So if you do get lucid, one of the big benefits is you get a much greater clarity about I am empty of any self-existence. I'm in a universe of interdependence, and then may I be of benefit? May I exercise my bodhicitta? So that's where it can be very, very beneficial for you to have a much greater sense of who you are. I have a friend of mine that had a very difficult relationship with his father and stuff. He was actually in the Bon tradition. He was with Tenzin Wangyal, but he was a very good friend of mine. And so he said that, in their tradition, they talk about lucid dreaming. I mean, Tenzin Wangyal has a book all about lucid dreaming, so it's a good read. He said that he managed to get lucid, and then he worked with his father. He said his father died, so he didn't have that person, but he had his father in his lucid dream. And so he sat down and he like he said, he first got it that he met with his father and his father was rude and angry and stuff like that. But because he was lucid, he's able to sit there. It's okay, Dad, I love you, and he just sort of breathe and such and sort of be with his dad. And then it took him quite a few times, but he finally then his dad started to calm down and be more friendly. And then he had a lucid dream and his father had a rifle. And in the lucid dream, he came up to his father. This is again after quite a bit of working on himself. And he came up to his father and he said, oh, what's that? And he said, oh, it's my anger. I like to shoot people with my anger. And he said, oh, really? And he says, yeah. But he says, I'm finished with that. And so he and his father in the lucid dream dug a hole and buried the gun in the dirt. And then he said that then he woke up and he said he had so much love for his father. He said he resolved all of his issues. And that's one of the things as a Dharma practitioner that is really, really good, that you can clean up some of your past karma. That makes it a whole, like, wow. And this is not any different than what psychologists teach high professional athletes. You can research this on if you want to Google. High professional athletes, not all of them, but a great number of them, learn how to lucid dream to be a better athlete. Because, for example, I mean, the story I read was like a slalom, a guy that was a slalom skier. Okay, so he was pretty good on the mountain. You could go down slaloming and everything really fast. And his psychologist taught him how to lucid dream, and so he got it. So he would be at the top of the mountain, you know, in the gate that's going to send him off, and he'd go out. And now he's lucid though. He's not real in the snow, and he'd go down skiing and stuff like that. And he'd get to a certain velocity, and he'd start losing control. It's a dream, but he knew that was the limit of his confidence. But because he was lucid, he taught himself how to then, well, I can fly. So then he would fly a little bit, come back on the snow, and then carry on with the slalom. So this is straight out of sports athletics, okay? Nothing to do with Buddhism at all, okay? And so what it is that you can learn a new level of confidence. For example, if you're an athlete, you want that little bit of an edge. Yeah, maybe you're physically super well tuned, but then your mind has that edge of a little bit of extra confidence that gets you that 0.3 of a millisecond faster down the slalom course of a ski run, okay? So it's just a silly example, but it applies. So come back to us. I had a really bad relationship with my mother, a really bad relationship with my father. I don't know, maybe I killed somebody or I did something bad or whatever. Okay, well, okay, you can practice the Dharma day to day. You can do breathing meditation, Tonglen on that. I mean, all the regular mundane things. But if you get lucid, you can invoke that person or that situation and maybe resolve it and heal yourself. And that's incredibly powerful. I had a friend of mine that had a very bad divorce. His wife totally cut him off, absolutely couldn't have any resolution, no closure in the divorce from his side. And the partner was just totally angry and upset, and it was like to even try to touch them, it was impossible. But he worked he did Tong. Oh, we lost it. What happened? Oh, sorry, my screen did something. Okay, so he had no ability, but he did Tonglen with his ex. So he would visualize his ex in front of him, inhale her and exhale back love and compassion, inhale, exhale, love, compassion. He told me it took him about 3 years, and he finally had a dream where he was with the Dalai Lama, and then his ex showed up, but she was friendly. And he and his ex and the Dalai Lama had this very, very nice conversation and such. And part of it actually was that the partner, he had become quite fat. Okay. anyway, and so in the dream, she'd lost a lot of weight. So my friend told me, he said when he woke up, he said, "Oh, hey, that's interesting." So he phoned back to where his ex lived, and he phoned up a friend and said, "Hey, what's so and so's what's she like physically?" "Oh, just the same." He went, "Oh, that was interesting." And anyway, then later he talked with some friends who were psychologists, and they said, "Oh, the situation isn't so heavy." So I think it's so intriguing if you can utilize your dream life in your Dharma practice. Okay, so I hope my appointment need to go. Okay, well that's it anyway. So we're finished. So it's now been an hour. I am so sorry. Next week it will be at 10 o'clock. This is the full session of what I wanted to talk about. It's all about lucidity. The first session was a bit of the sort of the organization setup. This session was lucidity, and the next session is going to be Vajrasattva, but tied it back to our Dharma practice and lucidity. And then the final session will be in 2 weeks will be about interpreting that. Great. So thank you very much. It's nice to see you. Eva, Heather, Lou, Benjamin, Jeff, and your partner who doesn't have her name there. Jeff, you got to do that. Add her name beside your name. Okay. And Dundra, very dear mom. Okay. So guys, hope you enjoy yourselves. Try to do at night, less bedding if you can, if it's not too cold. Eat a light meal, motivate. Okay. And then maybe you can start having some, at least conscious of your dream life. Okay. Wishing you very well. Take good care, big hugs, and see you next week.